Oh no, they're coming. Who is? What the hell was that?
Stop shouting. You'll draw the monsters.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Haynes and I'm the Senior Editor of Video Games at Common Sense Media. I'm here today with a quick look at Resident Evil Village. It's a survival horror game that came out on May 7th, 2021 for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Windows PC, and Google Stadia. Now, a very quick note for parents, this is a mature survival horror game that is definitely not for kids. We've tried to cut out some of the story spoilers as well as some of the blood, gore, and dismemberment that you might find in the game, but some of that is going to be unavoidable within this video, so you have a very quick heads up and warning right there. Also, we've tried to cut out some of the mature language because there is a lot of profanity that is frequently used throughout the title, but there's only so much that we can do within the video, so you are forewarned. Otherwise, we'll get to some of the other elements that might be concerning a little bit later on in the video. Now, in case you don't know, Resident Evil 8 is a direct follow-up to Resident Evil 7, and you're introduced to Ethan Winters. In fact, this scene that you see right here is actually a recap scene in case you haven't fully played through Resident Evil 7 or you're not entirely sure what's going on. In it, you're introduced to Ethan Winters, the protagonist of Resident Evil 7, who went after his wife Mia after she disappeared somewhere in the backwoods of Louisiana. Of course, that happened to turn to its own mysterious and very dangerous adventure. 3 years later, they wind up relocating to Europe, but unfortunately, as you can see right here, the hazards and the danger has clearly followed them from the US all the way over to Europe. And in fact, one of the things that happens is they wind up being attacked mysteriously one night by seemingly a friend. This is Chris Redfield, who, for people that happen to know the Resident Evil franchise, was one of the main protagonists for some of the early games within the long-storied survival horror franchise. Chris winds up breaking into Ethan's house. He shoots Mia and kidnaps Ethan suddenly one night without any warning, without any notice, and there begins Ethan's second nightmare, if you will, into very strange and mysterious circumstances. So once Ethan manages to escape from being kidnapped, he finds himself in a valley that's dominated by that mysterious castle, and he has no idea what's going on. He has no idea where he is, but all he knows is that, you know, his wife has literally been killed by somebody that he once considered to be a friend. But that's not the strangest part of it. He lands inside the confines of this village, and clearly everything has seen better days. This horse obviously has had a better time within its life, and he's just trying to find somebody that he can talk to, somebody to figure out whatever's going on. Of course, as he's trying to be positive and say maybe they're out, unfortunately for Ethan, there's a whole lot of people that are going to be out, probably permanently, if you couldn't tell by the state of the house right here. One of the things about Resident Evil Village is that it's very open as opposed to some of the other Resident Evil games. In some cases, while there's still a certain amount of linearity, including some of the creepy jump scares that you might see with like the horse being dragged off around corners, so you kind of expect something to jump out at you. You really don't fully understand what's going on, but you do have a certain amount of area around not only the village, but some of the other locations that you wind up adventuring to, and you can basically go in and out as you wish until you end up getting locked in and having to clear everything. Now, as you can see right here at the early part, this village really has gone through a lot of very strange things. There are obviously some odd sacrifices going on, which would definitely put anybody on edge, you would think. Clearly, the one villager that Ethan runs into right here, he's really high-strung as he takes a quick pot shot at Ethan, because something has definitely gone wrong within this village. This man is terrified, but there's also very strange sounds going on.
What's going on?
That's not something that you typically expect to hear anywhere, whether it happens to be a village that you've been mysteriously dropped into, or you're just, you know, at home late at night on Halloween and waiting for people to come trick-or-treating by your door. Something has clearly gone wrong here. Now, obviously, because this man is heavily armed and is basically waiting to fire at anything that moves, something probably has tried to attack anybody that still is alive. In fact, this is the first person Ethan has seen, and if he's giving him a gun, something really has gone wrong. even if he's taking shots at virtually any sound or any noise that moves, he's terrified. Unfortunately for him, this doesn't work out very well. Obviously, firing that shot alerted whatever it was to their location, and unfortunately, Ethan's going to be the next victim of that as well. As you can see him being dragged to the floor. This brings up basically one of the first combat sequences of the game. Of course, here's basically one of the mutants or the lichens, as you can kind of tell. They seem very much like werewolves. In some cases, these characters are very much like the Ganados of Resident Evil 4. Instead of zombies that you might find in the previous Resident Evil games, they dodge, they move, they actually will get out of the way when you're aiming at them, which makes it very hard to get an accurate shot on them. In fact, in some sequences, especially this one right here as it comes up, you'll see a couple of these mutant creatures, these kind of mutant werewolves up on rooftops. And whenever the game actually gives you a prompt in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, frequently it's telling you what you can do, such as guarding or the item that you have. But when the game actually tells you something like run or survive the attack as it's about to do in a couple of seconds, you know that things are really going to become very, very intense. And of course, that's basically what happens within a lot of the action sequences of the game. You have some moments where you really do have to try to survive against overwhelming odds, especially at the beginning of the game where you're still trying to figure out what's happening. There's a whole lot of things that are being thrown at you. And you really do have to try to make it out against a lot of these creatures that just keep on coming. And like I said, they will duck, they will dodge, they will move out of the way. So your aim really has to be true. In some cases, trying to find ways of peeking around corners, getting a good shot, especially with a shotgun up close, which frequently will kill one of those monsters automatically if you aim properly, really does have a certain amount of giving you additional space so that you can get additional ammo or other things, including some of the coins that you'll pick up, which you can also redeem at a later point in time for bullets, ammo, gear, other things like that. Other times, though, you might need to use the environment, like you saw a little bit earlier on, pulling a bookshelf across a door to block the entrance so that monsters have a harder time of getting near you, giving yourself a little bit of a breather so that you can reload your weapons, figure out where they might be coming from, prepare yourself, and possibly get ready for an onslaught. As you can see right here, there's a explosive barrel that just happened to be within that room, and firing at it managed to take out a couple of the monsters that happen to be on the other side of the door. That's not exactly the only way to make it through this, though. As you can see, there are monsters all around, and unfortunately we just got hit by one of them. They're also on the rooftops. They're firing arrows. This is getting worse by the second. And Ethan just simply has to try to figure out what he can do to fend all of these creatures off. Again, another explosive barrel. It's just a breather. This is getting worse. Of course, here and there, you might find little items that get dropped as you eliminate some of these creatures, even if they wind up attacking you, like that crystal skull. Again, another item that you can use to redeem later on for other gear. But even with the monsters that you face, there are also creatures like that. Huge, strange mutants with massive weapons, and you'll face off against a lot of these within the game, and you're simply trying to survive. Of course, here and there, as you're going through, you'll sometimes run into other characters, some of whom will give you a sense of what might be going on within this village. This is just one or two of the denizens of the village that have managed to hide out in a cabin far away from where we just were. They're terrified as well. Obviously, not only the monsters have been hunting them, but they've been attacked. Her father has actually been hitten by one of those creatures that we literally just saw in the last scene, and he's lost a lot of blood. This is not a very good situation, especially because clearly there's no help coming for these people, and the medical aid is probably few and far between for anybody in this situation. Unfortunately for them, and in some cases unfortunately for Ethan, especially as he's trying to figure out what's going on, you kind of get a sense that some of these people really are going to be lost, primarily because of some of the odd circumstances. The mystery of what's going on is something that you'll unravel as you play through the game. You wind up going through many of the various environments, and there's a lot of different locations, as well as uncovering and unlocking new areas that you can then explore. Unfortunately, the father that we just saw who was injured, that attack from earlier has definitely done something to him, and yeah, he's turning into something different, something unnatural, something nobody should want to have any part of. As we're trying to save her, unfortunately, her father has literally decided to attack and destroy everybody, as well as set the house on fire that they've taken refuge in. And it's maybe up to you to try to fend him off or get a little bit additional space. Again, fending off, fighting off other creatures, that's going to be part and parcel of this Resident Evil Village experience. In fact, here we've leapt forward a little bit to another section where the kind of zombie-like creatures appear. Some of these are just going to pop up at times, and there's going to be a lot of jump scares. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of moments where you are going to be attacked from all sides, but you're also going to see creatures and people being dismembered, disemboweled, other body horror elements that are just key to this style of gameplay, and it plays out throughout the entire adventure, so you should be forewarned. Again, as I also mentioned at the beginning of the game, there's also a lot of mature language. You may have heard some of it in some of the clips already. The profanity definitely flies freely within this title itself. The other thing which you might also want to pay some attention to as a parent is that some of the characters, including Lady Dimitrescu and her vampire daughters, as they've been known on the internet, wear very low-cut clothing to show off their assets, and that's definitely something to be aware of. If you have any other concerns about some of the content that might be within the game, you can always look at the content grid on our website in the review of Resident Evil Village on Common Sense Media. So I thought we'd just close out this video right here with a quick snippet showing off the vampire daughters, as it were, and showing how that is a hook through Ethan's leg. And they clearly are hungry for him. I mean, they are vampires, and obviously Ethan being injured, that's quite easily a meal for him. And as they drag him through this castle, you get the sense that not only have they done this before, but there's something worse that they're possibly bringing him to. Well, that's when you meet Lady Dimitrescu, the vampire mother who, in some cases, has been really a focal point for a lot of the footage that may have been shown on the internet about Resident Evil Village.
Let's take a look at him.
And she clearly knows who Ethan is, even though Ethan really does not know who she happens to be. This is obviously not only a very scary moment, because this is a very tall woman who clearly is eager and hungry for blood, but as you can see right here, she has no problem diving in, injuring Ethan, and tasting of him, which gives you a little bit of a sense also of the kind of content that you're going to be facing. Again, like I said, we didn't want to try to spoil any of the story moments, but just give you a quick glimpse of some of the actions, some of the sequences from the game that you can expect when you decide to play it. So that's a really quick look, a very, very quick snippet of Resident Evil Village. As I said, it was released on May 7th, 2021. For top picks and advice to fit your family, always be sure to check out commonsensemedia.org.